It's enormously important to have the right heroes in life, and then it's enormously important that they never let you down. And I've been unbelievably fortunate in having those heroes, perhaps a dozen or so, led by my father and my first wife. And they had a huge impact on me, but a number of other people have as well. And never in my life have I felt I was let down by them. I tell the students, you know, the most important job they have for most of them is going to be the teacher of their children. And you start out as your children's hero, and you don't get a second chance at living that role out. That child looks to you and forms its opinion of the world, its attitude, its behavior, starting with what they see in you. And I had enormous good fortune in that respect. I had, in the investing world, I had Ben Graham, I had my partner Charlie Munger, who taught me all kinds of things. There's several members of our board of directors have had a huge influence on my life. So it is important to have the right heroes and select them with care. But when you find them, you will be a better person if you look at the qualities in them that you admire, and then you say, why can't I have these same qualities? I mean, that's the beauty of wonderful heroes, is that you get to see in action behavior that inspires you, and then you have to ask yourself the question, why can't I behave in a similar manner? And you will be a better person because of that. We have all the money we need. You know, we'd like to have more, but we can afford to lose money. But we can't afford to lose reputation, not a shred of reputation. And therefore, I ask the managers, I ask them to judge every action they take, not just by legal standards, although obviously that's the first test, but also by the test, what I call the newspaper test. How would they feel about any given action if they knew it was to be written up the next day in their local paper, to be read by their family, by their friends, by their neighbors, written by a smart but kind of unfriendly reporter? And if it passes that test, it's okay. And I tell them if anything is close to the lines, it's out. And they can always call me if they wanted to check something. But if they call me, there's something wrong with it probably anyway. So, and that's about it. We pay our board, our directors, $900 a year. And I really would like to pay them more, but Bill's so far ahead of me on that Forbes list already. I don't want to give him any ammunition. Three things in hiring people: look for integrity, intelligence, and energy. And he said if the person didn't have the first two, that the latter two would kill them. Because if they don't have integrity, you want them dumb and lazy. You don't want them smart and energetic.
Aspire to do? Do you aspire to become a very wealthy person? Would you want to be buying stocks? Would you want to buy companies? What was your aspiration in those early days?
I loved just analyzing securities. I just spent hours and hours and hours. I kept turning the pages of Moody's, which instead of going, you had no internet then or anything else, so you had two sources of information, Moody's and Standard & Poor's. And we happened to have these sets of Moody's. They were about, in aggregate, probably about 8,000 pages, about 5 different manuals. And I went through those page by page.
And, well, it must have been exciting.
Yeah, it's a little strange. I mean, I actually went to Amazon a few years ago, and I found an old 1951 Moody's. Now, everybody else is going there for Playboy magazine, but I'm ordering the old Moody's. You've got a strange guy here. The worst investment I ever made? How long do you have? I've made some very bad ones, but that doesn't really bother me. It may bother the shareholders, but that's another question. You're going to make mistakes in life. I mean, there's no question about it. You don't want to make them on the big decisions, who you marry and some things like that. So there's no way I'm going to make a lot of business and investment decisions without making some mistakes. I may try to minimize them. I don't dwell on them at all. I don't look back. The biggest mistakes are the ones that actually don't show up. They're the mistakes of omission rather than commission. We've never lost that much money on any one investment, but it's the things that I knew enough to do that I didn't do. We have missed profits of as much as, maybe $10 billion in things that I knew enough to do and I didn't do. Now, the fact I didn't buy Microsoft way back is not a foregone opportunity because I didn't know enough to make that decision. But there have been other investments where I did know enough to make the decision, and for one reason or another, I either didn't do it at all or I did it on a small scale. I was sucking my thumb when I should have been writing checks, basically. And those don't show up. There's no place where it shows missed opportunities, but I've missed some big ones. The triumphs in life are partly triumphs because you know that everything isn't going to be a triumph. I would never get too hung up on mistakes. I know a lot of people that really agonize over them, and it just isn't worth it. I mean, tomorrow's another day, and you live it forward and just go on to the next thing.
The nature of capitalism is that people want to come in and take your castle. It's perfectly understandable. I mean, if I'm selling television sets or something, there's going to be 10 other people that are going to try and sell a better television set. If I have a restaurant here in Omaha, people are going to try and copy my menu and give more parking and take my chef and so on. So capitalism's all about somebody coming and trying to take the castle. Now, what you need is a castle that has some durable competitive advantage, some castle that has a moat around it. And that moat, one of the best moats in many respects, is to be a low-cost producer. But sometimes the moat is just having more talent. I mean, if you're the heavyweight champion of the world and you keep knocking out people, you've got a competitive advantage as long as you can keep doing it. And it's very profitable if you're the one that happens to be able to do it. If you can turn out great motion pictures, I mean, Steven Spielberg, I mean, he's a fellow to bet on, and it has enormous economic value. I just read and read and read. I probably read 5 to 6 hours a day. I don't read as fast now as when I was younger, but I read 5 daily newspapers. I read a fair number of magazines. I read 10Ks. I read annual reports, and I read a lot of other things too. So I've always enjoyed reading. I love reading.